Day supply of inventory at car dealerships is exploding right now. Look at all of these Super Duty trucks. You can see specifically for dealerships like Ford. This is a problem that I'm seeing at almost every Ford dealership that I go to. Look, you've got all these vehicles parked right here. You've got all these vehicles parked right here. They are at double the amount of inventory that they want to have right now. So I wanted to bring in someone that's negotiating with these dealerships each and every day.
This is Jennifer. How can I assist you today?
Hey, Jennifer, are you in sales?
Yes, I am.
Hey, awesome. I wanted to see if you guys have a car. You're saying if I call enough dealerships, somebody won't give me that price?
Nobody.
Challenge accepted.
To see exactly what he's seeing in the market. All right, so Tommy, with inventory levels rising, specifically with like a company like Ford, where they have double the amount of inventory per day that they want right now, does that change how you go about negotiating with certain brands? I know that you always say 7 to 10% off of a vehicle is a good deal. But when you see brands like Ford, brands like Stellantis, when they're adding so many days of supply of inventory, does that change your tactic of that 7 to 10%?
I mean, the 7 to 10% rule is always a solid rule because it's really the maximum amount of money that a dealership wants to lose before it gets to a scary, unprofitable level. But right now, inventory across all brands, and we're even talking Toyota and Lexus, they're having increase of inventory, is at dramatic levels. And the reason why inventory is so high right now is that a lot of manufacturers are trying to get ahead of the tariffs, but nobody really knows what's going on with the tariffs. They keep getting pushed back, added. Every week is different news. So manufacturers are getting inventory and dealerships are frankly just freaking out. They don't know what to do, which means I've seen some crazy deals. I've seen over 12% on some Fords. I've seen 12 to 15% on some Toyotas. Which is crazy.
So when you're approaching these brands, then what do you generally lead with? Because I know usually negotiation back and forth, they want to do 5 and 6 pencils. Whenever you're going into these negotiations, are you starting out at 18% and getting back to that 12% number? Where are you trying to throw your first number?
So, my general rule of thumb is if you want the best results, you want to get the lowest possible price. My recommendation is always asking the dealership for their best number. 10% is definitely, if you want a great deal, call it a day, make it easy, ask them for 10%. But if you want to get to these crazy levels, which Brandon is bringing up, you need to ask a dealership for their best number. And then you have to shop that. You can't commit to one dealership because the second you commit to one dealership and then you don't meet that commitment, they're never going to beat that price again. You have to ask for the best price and you have to shop it. And if you're willing to shop that deal, the number will keep going down. And like I said, we did a Crown Signia deal where we were 16% off the other day. Because we kept doing the same thing. We didn't even start at 18%. Because if you start at 18%, some dealerships are going to look at you funky. But if you have a number at 12% and they're willing to beat it at 13%, that's a much easier pill to swallow.
Do you see any trends right now in the market when you're negotiating? Because you're covering all the brands across the board. You're covering many states across the board. I mean, you're dealing with potentially every type of customers out there that's shopping in the car market right now. Do you see any trends that are happening right now that maybe you didn't see 6 months or 12 months ago that you're able to use as a weapon right now?
So one of the biggest ones right now is one of the toughest brands in the world to negotiate is Toyota right now. Toyota's been low in inventory for the last 4 years. And no matter what has happened with the market, nothing has impacted Toyota. Toyota's remained the same. As inventory's increased, Toyota's been fine. But recently, Toyota met with a whole bunch of executives, a whole bunch of dealership owners, and told them that inventory was going to increase. They were no longer going to do this thing where nobody has dealership or inventory in their lots. They felt bad for last year because the Grand Highlander was on recall for half the year. The Prius back doors were opening and it was on stop sale for 4 months. And they want to have a better year. So they are upping manufacturing. They're telling dealerships to prepare to have dealership or to have inventory on your lots. And this is a big thing coming from the manufacturer. So compared to 6 months ago, where we see some manufacturers maybe with some less desirable cars like CDJR or Ford, we're now seeing this with the most popular brands like Toyota. And the second Toyota has inventory, I'm telling you, everybody's going to fall suit.
Yeah, and we're seeing that a lot with at least the other brands. I'm glad that Toyota is now catching up with everything else. And I know that Toyota, for at least when I watch your videos, seems to be one of the most difficult brands for you to negotiate. So I'm sure you're happy about these dealerships actually getting some of this inventory. So when you're going, just for someone who's watching this that may be looking at negotiating over the phone, something similar to what you do, do you look at the inventory on hand at the specific dealership that you're looking at and see if they have 3 or 4 of the same models that you're looking at? So you can say, okay, well, if you can knock some of this off because you got three of them sitting there, and I know they've been sitting there for however many 90 plus days. I know you want to move one. Do you use that in your arsenal at all when you're going to negotiate?
So I think I do it a little bit different. So, when you can talk about one dealership's inventory, it makes it a dealership has a really easy comeback. If they have 5 cars coming in, they can say that's not a lot of cars. But if you can do it for an entire region, you go in a 500-mile radius and you use some tools that we've been utilizing lately to say there's 300 cars coming into the region. That's a much more impactful reason for a dealership to discount a car. So what we do right now is we're using an entire regions-based inventory to say, hey, based on what we're seeing right now, we see 300 of these cars about to hit your region right now. In the next 2 months, the market is going to be flooded. So let's talk about a deal that makes sense for you, makes sense for us, and we can put a dream in a driveway.
And if you had to mention maybe 3 different manufacturers, who do you think are the 3 most negotiable manufacturers right now where you feel like you could get 15+% off if you go to just about any dealership just because they're not moving?
15%. That is a lot. I will say 15%, just so we're all clear, is a lofty goal. Like that is you can, and not every brand, like not every Ford, like I'm going to put Ford in there, but not every Ford is going to be able to get to 15% off. So don't go for a Raptor R and say, okay, it's time to get 15% off now, because those are still going above sticker.
But something like a Bronco where they're cutting production and they got them sitting everywhere, you're probably going to be able to get a Bronco for 15% off.
10 to 15% off on some of the old Broncos. We can go CDJ or Stellantis as a whole, Ford, Stellantis. Chevy's actually holding strong. Surprisingly, they're doing pretty well.
I think Volkswagen's in a hard time.
Yeah, thank you. Volkswagen. Yeah, so Volkswagen, Ford, and the Stellantis group as a whole. But Ram is one of those brands that I know you've talked about a lot as well. We just don't know what's going to happen with them. They've talked about dropping MSRPs, cutting by 30%. The sky's the limit for what might happen with that brand.
I saw a deal the other day for a Grand Wagoneer from this Jeep dealership. If you bought a Grand Wagoneer, they would give you a free Jeep Compass with it. Buy one, get one free.
So I will, speaking of that, funny enough, that is one of like the new, I don't want to call it scams because that's a scam. That's a strong word. It's not a scam, but this is a new tactic that dealerships are using. It's not just Ram. It's a buy one, get one. And what they're doing is taking all of the savings from one car that you should get either way and building it into a short-term lease. So you're not actually getting a Jeep Compass for free. And they've done that with Toyota. I've seen it with the Tundra to the Tacoma. I saw it with Kia. What I'll warn you is with the buy one, get one free, just take the savings. Don't get the second one free, because all you're doing is getting a car at an inflated lease payment and the savings that you're getting over a 1-year lease. So it's not a free car. You're not getting just a free Compass with a title in hand. It is going to be a lease is how that works. So just a heads up. That's one that we've been dealing with lately.
So maybe that's the biggest scam that you're seeing in the market now. So if that's the biggest scam, what is the second biggest thing that you're seeing in the market where you would say to the viewers, okay, you need to avoid this?
Yeah. The big thing dealerships are still doing, which is advertising one price and having dealership add-ons. This is like so popular at this point. There's a few states that have mandated that you have to have everything on the website, but I'm telling you, even those states lie. They'll advertise $42,000. They'll advertise a $5,000 discount. They'll make it seem like everything's hunky-dory. Even when you call, like, oh yeah, we're doing a $5,000 discount. That's it. No games, no play. And the second you walk into the dealership, they talk about their mandatory package, their add-ons, their market adjustment that they didn't mention before. So the biggest thing to combat that is getting numbers in writing. And if a dealership is unwilling to do that when they have it on their website, it's a huge red flag. If you're willing to advertise, you have $5,000 off your website, why couldn't you put it down in writing? I could just show this to another dealership if I was going to shop your deal. The reason why you're not willing to do it is because you know for a fact there's more fees that you're not mentioning.
So for those of you watching this, if you don't know, what Tommy does is he actually negotiates deals for his clients. They pay him to go do all the legwork, everything like that. So he's actually negotiating each and every one of these deals every single day. So what's the best deal that you've actually got on a vehicle? If you can think of one of these deals that you've gotten for one of your clients.
So I think probably my favorite deal that I'm doing right now that I've done quite often is a Crown Signia. And a lot of people look at the Crown Signia and they say, oh my God, a $45,000 Toyota, that's insane. But I think how you have to look at the Crown Signia, it's a luxury Toyota, which is a Lexus. I call it I don't want to call it a poor man's Lexus because that's a weird way to say it. But if you're in the market for a Lexus, I would look at the Crown Signia because I think it's going to offer you a lot of the things you're looking for on Lexus, but you're going to save 10 grand because you can save 15% off those cars, which is just insane. So if you're in the Lexus market, I say look at a Crown Signia because the deals, like I said, we did 16% off one the other day. We are just seeing incredible deals, and in my opinion, an actual good SUV.
Would the comp be like what maybe a Venza used to be, kind of like the RX 350 a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say like an RX 350 and a Venza combined. It'd be something along those lines. Yeah, the Venza was a little bit more luxury, but I think the Crown Signia takes it to a whole new level. I think they took they replaced the Venza with the Crown because they thought people wanted a car. They did not. So then they made it into the Crown Signia, and I think it's a better transformation of what the Venza was.
And let's go to the flip side of best deals. If you had to categorize one manufacturer right now, what's the most difficult for you to negotiate for right now?
Good question. There are certain cars in particular. The GX550 is just a numbers game. We on average call 60 to 80 dealerships per GX550 deal,
Wow.
just because there's so little availability. Lexus as a whole is a tough brand. They haven't recovered like Toyota's recovered. They're going to, but the GX550 is going to be one of those cars that are going to be in this weird, very difficult time to get for the next probably year or so.
And so I had a question. What was it? Oh yeah. Do you negotiate used deals too?
We do, yeah. So we do about 65% of our cars are new, and then about 35% used. The reason why we don't advertise used as much is honestly we believe the new car market is the best way to go. Just comes down to the fact that we believe new is a better value in today's market. First off, the old rule of thumb is that cars depreciate 20% the second they leave the lot. That is not the case in today's market, especially for brands like Toyota. So because of that, we recommend buying new cars, not only because the price difference is so small once you negotiate, but the interest rates of your financing are so dramatic. We'll see 2% on a new car, while you'll see 7% on a used car. It's such a big spread that it's worth it to buy new in most cases.
So, do you have a different approach negotiating a used car versus a new car? Because I know when you're going through a new car, you can shop it because every Toyota dealership is going to be able to sell every different Toyota, depending on stock. So, you can shop them against different Toyota dealerships. You can shop them against different Toyota ships in different states. But for used vehicles, every used vehicle is completely different. So, what's your tactic when you're actually looking for a used vehicle for one of your clients?
Yeah. And I always tell my clients every time they hire us for used cars are some of the most complicated cars to negotiate because of multiple different reasons. Not only is every used car different, but the other thing that people don't take into consideration is every dealership's approach to used cars are different. I always say there's three types of dealerships in the world. There's some dealerships that advertise an insanely low price just to get you in the door, and then they hit you with add-ons and fees. So they might advertise a $40,000 price, but they have $5,000 of add-ons they're not telling you about. There's other dealerships that just price their car super competitive. They might not negotiate, but they say, hey, we're going to price it to market. We're not going to move on the price. They don't have add-ons or fees, but they're going to be probably a little bit higher than the first option. And then there's a third option that are going for home runs every single time. They're pricing their cars well above market, and they're hoping that somebody overpays by $5 or $6 grand. How you negotiate with all of these dealerships is going to be one thing, because this first dealership, you're probably not getting anything off the price. You might actually go up in price because the price was already too low to begin with. You might be just fighting to get down to their listed price as a win. Compared to that $48,000 car, that high price car, you might be trying to take thousands of dollars off. So the best way to do this is just do a lot of market research. What we always do with used cars is we find 5 to 8 comparables in the market. I always tell my clients, we're not looking for the cheapest car, we're looking for the best car. You have to ask each and every one of them for out the door pricing. If they refuse to give that, that's a huge red flag. I normally say that's probably one of that group 1 dealerships, but you're just trying to find a comparable based on 5 to 8 cars that are similar. It's not the same as new cars, but it's the best you can do.
So I have a really serious question that I want to ask you, and I want to know why you're spreading the worst car buying advice ever on the internet. So we just want to throw out your presence is your power, and us dealers, we want your presence in the in the dealership, right? And that's going to be the best way to negotiate against me for that 1968 Ford Taurus with 800,000 miles on it, is what you like to say. But anyway, so from the dealer standpoint, obviously we would rather have the customer in there ready to buy. It tells me that that they're a serious buyer, and I still believe that your presence is your power, is one of the biggest powers that you can have when you're going to negotiate against these dealerships. But I want to hear your standpoint on why this is the worst advice ever.
So I know that me and you have this grudge back and forth where presence is power. I would argue that and I'll put up the challenge. I've put up the challenge to you, but I'll put up the challenge to anybody. The deals that we get because we're able to shop nationwide are truly unmatched. When you have competition of hundreds of different dealerships, it opens up to a level of competition that you don't know exist. And that's why I say that competition is the best driver of price, because I will tell you, if you go to a dealership, and depending on the dealership you go to, some are easier than others. Some dealerships might just say, we're not willing to do that price. But I'm telling you, 100% of the time, if you have numbers in your hand and you say, hey, I have these numbers, can you beat them? Every dealership in the country will say, let me see it. Let me see what I can do. You can give any offer in the world, but if I have numbers in my hand, that means that I have a serious offer and they're willing to beat it. So competition is the best driving force, and they don't care where you're at with competition. It doesn't matter if you're at home, in the dealership, at your mom's house. It doesn't matter. They're going to want to try to beat that price because they know you're on the precipice of buying. You're at a dealership. Anytime somebody has numbers in their hand, they're the most serious buyer. If they went to another dealership, already got numbers, and now they're at your dealership, they're buying. They're the most serious buyer we can get. So why not try to close them in any shape or way, shape, form we can? And it doesn't hurt to throw out numbers. If I throw out numbers and never hear from you again, at least I tried rather than not trying at all. So presence power, it's nice. Sure, it might work for you, Brandon, but I would say for the regular everyday consumer, competition is going to drive the price down way more.
Okay, and I agree with the competition aspect. So then let's go into this. So for me as a car dealer, if my consumer is not standing in front of me ready to buy a car, then I'm not considering them a serious buyer. So how do you as a consumer, you as someone who is negotiating for the consumer, how do you let that dealership know over the phone, over email? How do you let them know that you're actually a serious buyer?
Yeah. So, and I will say one or two things, and I'll bring this up. And no shade at you, Brandon, but you do work at a dealership lot that is, I think, probably cars have 180,000 miles, and if I don't look at that car that's $3,000, then I'm not that serious. My clientele and most of the people buying cars that I talk to are buying 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, and they're going to drive the car. They're probably never bringing it to their mechanic. They're all certified. They're all new, and it's a whole different market. And dealerships understand that. They understand if you're looking at a 2022 new, and if somebody says, oh, you need to drive it to look at the condition, the first question I'm going to ask them is, should I be worried about the condition? Is this not a new condition like you described it on the website? Can you give me a better video to describe that? I normally, on used cars, I almost always ask for videos and pictures. I say, hey, can you send me a video? I love iPhones. So I say, hey, can you send me a video from an iPhone? Because that's the best way to convert it from iPhone to iPhone. Don't email me something. Send me a video from an iPhone. Send me pictures. I tell the salesperson to find any flaws that they can and take pictures of those, and tell them when I go in to see the car, if I find the flaw and it wasn't reported, I'll just walk out of the dealership. That's normally enough for them to find every scratch they can. And then tell them I'm willing to put a deposit on the car today, pending inspection, if we agree to numbers. So telling them you're willing to do something if you agree to the terms that I have shows that you're a serious buyer.
So the deposit is one of the best things that you use to show that dealership that you're ready to buy. You're ready to put some money on it. You want this car, and then they will then treat you like a serious buyer. Or is there some dialogue before that that you can get them to actually give you? Because when you're putting deposit down, like, you already have numbers generally. So how do you get them to a point where they will actually give you real numbers?
So, so first off, it's funny because I just had a consult. I do free consults, and I had a consult ask me this exact question. First off, there isn't a magic word that you can say to every single dealership 100% of the time that is going to convince them that you're serious. There are some dealerships that just don't want to deal with you online. And I always say those dealerships are normally a red flag. There's a reason why. My general rule of thumb is any dealership that wants to make your life difficult over the phone are going to make your life difficult when you get in the dealership. That's a good rule of thumb to follow every single time you're buying a car. almost every dealership will hold a car with a deposit. So when you're trying to get these numbers, if a dealership, I tell the client that I tell the dealership that I'm too busy. I don't have time to come in. I know exactly what I want. I feel confident based on the pictures that you've given me that this is a good quality car. If you're telling me it's not a good quality car, let me know now so I don't waste your time. But I need numbers on this car to see if I'm ready to move forward. When you do all of that, it's enough for a dealership to take you seriously. And if they still don't give you numbers, just walk away. The dealership's not worth it. But if they do, that means that dealership's probably going to make your life easy when you get to the dealership.
And I know that, see, I've talked to Ray. I've never worked in a new car dealership. I've bought a couple cars from franchise dealers before, but I don't know the back and forth of what happens. I'm in my small little used car world. In my car lot, we operate 100% different than the way the rest of the car market operates, and I understand that. So I know when I talk to Ray and he talks about the pencils that goes back and forth, your negotiation process, when someone's actually in the store, say on average 5 to 6 pencils before you're actually closing a deal. How does it work over the phone? How does it work over email? How many pencils would you assume that you're actually going through?
See, and this is one of the reasons why I like online as well. I feel like when you're in store, dealerships, because they feel like they have control, are willing to, when you ask them for $3,000 off, they're willing to take the risk at $500 off, because worst case scenario, they can chase you out the door and say, okay, we agree. When you're over the phone, they don't have that same luxury. So the amount of pencils you're actually getting, the amount of negotiating you're doing is going to be less. Dealerships are more willing to drop the price dramatically just to get to their bottom dollar, and continually doing that over and over. So I say consistently 3 to 4 pencils. And that's, I mean, sometimes we can get it done in 2. But 3 to 4 pencils is what we're normally seeing before we get to these discounts.
So what I will say is that for the average consumer, it's my belief that if you use Tommy's service, you're actually going to get a better deal than what you're going to get yourself. Now, I know Tommy says, don't hire me to save money, but I do think for the average consumer out there that doesn't want to go through all these hassle of dealing with these stupid dealerships, Tommy's going to save you time. He's going to save your energy. And then on top of that, he's going to make up for the amount of money that you're paying him. You're going to be able to get a better deal through Tommy than you're probably going to be able to get through yourself. So Tommy, where, if somebody's watching this, they want to buy a car, they don't want to deal with the hassle of dealerships, where do they find you?
Yeah, delivered2.me is going to be the best website for us, but we have a YouTube channel. Just type in delivered without the E near the end.
We'll put a link down in the description too if you want to find it.
It's a weird spelling, but yeah, we do it on YouTube. We do live negotiation. So, I believe that actions speak louder than words. So I like to show you guys what I do each and every day, not only so you can learn, but so you can see if I'm worth hiring. So you can go to my YouTube page, watch me negotiate deals Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 3 hours. I negotiate live for the people. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I would recommend Tommy. I think he does a great job. I think he saves people a lot of money, and more than that, I think he saves people a lot of stress. There we go. All right, thanks, Tommy, for being on here today.
Thanks for having me.